Hi, meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday morning, November 8th. We're getting farther and farther into the month of November. Remember, in our winter outlook, we outlined the possibility, the strong probability, I believe, of a quick start to winter in much of the eastern part of the nation. We're starting to see some signs of a more frequent cold air masses that will come into the central and eastern part of the nation. One of the things we'll be following over the next few weeks and really right through the winter season will be the North Atlantic Oscillation. This is one of those teleconnection indices that kind of gives us an idea as to what might be happening in certain parts of the world and what impact it could have in the central and eastern part of the nation. The NAO and its closely related cousin called the Arctic Oscillation kind of give us an idea of what's going on in the North Atlantic, in the Arctic region with respect to temperature and precipitation patterns. When these indices go in a negative territory, that tends to be correlated with more frequent cold air outbreaks into the central and eastern U.S. And there are many other teleconnection indices we're looking at as well, like out in the Pacific called the Eastern Pacific and the Western Pacific Oscillation. And all of these are starting to show some signs of possible more frequent cold air outbreaks coming down the road for the central and eastern U.S. Again, we kind of expect a quick start to winter later November, and especially signals point to a colder than normal December. Take a look at our winter outlook. Go to our home page and then click on seasonal outlooks and look at the 2021-2022 winter outlook, and we discussed the reasons behind what we expect to be a quick start to winter. First of all, here is the NAO. The red is the forecast going forward. The black, the observes. Right now, slightly negative territory. Then it pushes towards the neutral line, and this is the neutral line right here. Over the next several days, it looks like the NAO. And this is according to the GFS model. All the models have their own forecast for these teleconnection indices. Then there's kind of a tendency to drop into negative territory. There's some runs that have a positive sign, but for the most part there's a tendency for the NAO and even the AO to slide into negative territory as we progress through the month of November. Again, kind of suggesting an increasing chance for cold air outbreaks into the central and eastern U.S. Certainly we'll have a cold air outbreak for the eastern U.S. this upcoming weekend, maybe lasting a few days and then a few days of a break, and then another cold air outbreak coming behind that. Well, in terms of precipitation, this is the forecast map from NOAA's Weather Prediction Center for total precipitation amounts over the next 5 days, and a few areas of interest here. First of all, along the eastern seaboard, much of, if not all of this, will fall at the end of the week, and we'll talk about that in a moment. There's a good chance for a pretty good rain event in the eastern U.S., probably the Friday night time frame as a cold frontal system approaches the eastern part of the nation. Here's some decent rainfall out across the heartland, and the west coast again continues to get hit from the northern half of California all the way up through Washington and into British Columbia, Vancouver region of Canada over the next several days. And some of this will fall as significant snow right here. A lot of precipitation over the Sierra Nevada mountains, eastern California over the next several days. And those higher elevation inland locations, this will be in the form of snow, and a lot of snow out across the interpart of the western U.S. in those higher elevation Rocky Mountain locations. Well, let's take a look at the European model run from 0Z last night. This is the ensemble run of the European, just looking at 500 millibar height anomalies averaged over rolling 5-day periods across North America. Just wanted to show that kind of a big time flip in the central and eastern U.S. coming as we approach the weekend and going into the early part of next week. The next few days, very nice weather. Places like the Mid-Atlantic region, the Great Lakes, and Northeast U.S. above normal temperatures after a chilly past week. We had many nights in a row with temperatures dropping into the low and middle 30s in the suburbs along the I-95 corridor region to the north and west of D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Persistent low to mid 30s in the overnight hours over the last several nights. Now we're heading into a milder period, high temperatures in the 60s, places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City for the next several days, and that's partly a result of upper level ridging aloft. This, again, is a rolling 5-day period, the height anomalies here. So for this current 5-day period, a lot of ridging from central Canada down across the northeastern part of the nation. Let's now just move forward and notice here by days 3 to 7, we're going out a little bit to November 10th to the 15th. Notice this deep upper level low start to set up, excuse me, over the south central part all the way up to the Great Lakes. In days 3 to 10, we go out even farther, and it really sets up shop over the central and eastern U.S. This is days 5 to 9, November 12th to the 17th, and here we go all the way into day 6 to 10. So we're looking at this weekend going to the early part of next week, quite a flip in the pattern from that upper level ridging aloft over the Great Lakes, over the northeast U.S. to a deep upper level low by the time we get to the upcoming weekend and the early part of next week. Again, a cold air shot coming into the eastern states, arriving into the eastern states this weekend, and it likely follows a pretty good rain event to end the work week Friday night time frame. But here we go. A deep upper level low, and that certainly won't be the end of it going forward. Again, signs point to some increasing frequency for cold air outbreaks to make it into the central and eastern U.S. over the next coming weeks. Well, let's now take a look at the operational run of the GFS from 6Z going forward. Again, very nice weather for the next few days in the Mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S., the Great Lakes, milder than last week. High temperatures up in the 60s in the big cities along the I-95 corridor region. The big story going forward will be the storm coming into the northwest, and then that kind of crosses the nation, and we have a cold air shot dropping in. And here we are by Thursday morning. This is a cold air shot. In fact, let's take a quick look at the temperature anomaly pattern right here. Notice that cold air shot making it into the central plains by the time we get to Thursday morning. Now if we shift back to the surface maps, there's a strong cold front right in this region right here, and as we get towards the end of the week, notice this large fetch of air out of the south to the north, out ahead of this strong low pressure system by the time we get to Friday morning. This very well could turn into a heavy rain event for the eastern third of the nation. This is ahead of that incoming cold frontal system, which at this particular time lies right across the upper part of the Midwest, right in this region right here. A cold air mass right here. And again, a south to north flow of air along the eastern seaboard by the time we get into Friday could turn into a significant rain event after several days of nice and dry weather. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, probably Thursday as well in the eastern states. But a good rain event at the end of the week, and then that cold air will flood into the Great Lakes and the Mid-Atlantic region over the upcoming week. And this is the forecast map for Saturday. Again, a colder air mass arrives this weekend into the Mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S., the Great Lakes, and that follows what is likely to be a pretty good rain event at the end of the work week. And this cold spell lasts from the weekend into the early part of next week. Then maybe a few days of milder again, followed by another cold air outbreak. And we'll likely see an increasing frequency for these cold air outbreaks over the next few weeks to make it into the central and eastern U.S. That's it for now. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.